off the gap between first and second.
Absolutely, the gap is 1.4 seconds as they cross the line that time. It's really ebbing and flowing really between 1.3 and 1.6 up at the front. I mean, there's not a massive amount for Westbrook to gain because it's only going to be 2 points, but pole position could be crucial.
I think that's the key, that they can start the race with their car on pole position. It is an advantage. It's a psychological also benefit to the team. And here we see now what's going on further down the field. The Aston Martin and the second of the JMR Motorsports cars, driven by Lucas Luhr, that's running in still 14th position, but maybe looking at 13th. Again, no advantage in terms of points scoring, but nonetheless, one position higher on the grid is always very welcome. And Thomas Enger now behind the wheel of the Aston.
Yeah, and if he starts 13th on the grid, he'll have the inside line for turn 1, which is always a helpful place to be. Of course, Thomas Enger started from the pit lane. Is this a look at the inside? That's going to be a little bit close. Surely Enger can hang on around the outside.
No, he can't. He wasn't interested. Thomas Enger didn't do anything there to defend. He decided, I'm not going to make an issue. I don't want to damage my car. We've got a brand or a fresh engine, whichever, in the car. Whether I start 13th or 14th, he may also have a problem at the pace he's running at right now. It was a no-brainer that Lucas Luhr was going to get through, and there was a fair bit of cooperation from I've lost my thoughts. From Lucas Luhr.
Lucas Luhr, yeah. So we go back on board with Christian Hohenadel still running in that 9th position, just behind Darren Turner. On that previous lap, Hohenadel did a 1:40.7, a 10th of a second slower than Turner. Only 7/10 of a second between them though, and it's been around that for a little bit of time. Looks like it might be a little bit more as they turn down through turn 14. May possibly have just extended a little bit on this lap. Jamie Campbell-Walter sets his fastest lap of the race the previous time around, running in 3rd place. But that's a good point that Peter Dumbreck made a minute ago. 2nd place man Richard Westbrook, he's got 22 seconds back to 3rd place. So there's no pressure at all from behind.
No, there's not. There's a race between these two cars for the lead, and the 3rd place Nissan of Jamie Campbell-Walter, as you say, sufficiently far behind not to be an issue. It's a matter of pride. If you're a racing driver, you race to win. You don't necessarily want to drive to consolidate, and Richard Westbrook will not want to consolidate. He'll want to pressurize as much as he can within his own limits. The Ford that's leading this race, the gap up to 1.7 seconds it was, lower than that down to 1.3 a couple of laps ago. And when you're pushing so hard, we saw Richard pushing very hard through turns 9 and 10, you do a lot of hard work on your car. You might need to let it breathe for a lap or two, give the tyres and the brakes that moment to recover.
So Maxime Martin leading the way with 16 minutes remaining here at the Ordos International Circuit. He's looking for his 2nd championship race victory of the season. As we look back, now the gap visible back to Richard Westbrook. It looks like it's extended. No, it's still 1.7 seconds. So Martin, as I say, looking for his 2nd championship race win of the season after he picked one up at the Saxon Ring. This, of course, is the qualifying race, though, of course, which he won in Abu Dhabi. So he won the very first race of the season, but it hasn't quite come together for the team this year, even though they've usually had the pace.
Yeah, and there's certainly Maxime Martin and Fred Makivicki have been a very combative and competitive, balanced driver lineup. But the Ford GT, it's a supercar, but not on every circuit.
So out of the corner, up towards turn 5. Let's go down to Haley in the pit lane. She is with Alex Muller.
Alex, are you happy the way the Aston Martin is now performing?
Yeah, we got back our engine. We got back our performance. We changed the engine. Thanks to the boys, they did it like in 1.5 hours, the engine change. We missed it like by 15 seconds to get out of the pit lane to the starting grid. So now Thomas stuck in traffic, but the car is fine.
Thank you.
But you can see, I mean, he's struggling in turn 1. The car was running wide on the exit. Whether that's, again, I don't think Thomas is doing the normal Thomas Enger thing, which is driving the wheels off the car. And I don't think he's capable of doing it. I don't think he's got the car right now to do it with. There was an easy pass from Lucas Luhr a few laps ago on number 7, the Gulf Aston Martin. So Thomas sitting there and running around, lapping roughly, well, middle 1:41, the same lap time as Lucas Luhr in the Nissan that just overtook him a minute or so ago.
I fear we saw 2 pit stops for Jonathan Kennard and Christopher Brook, and they are in the pits again, and it looks like they have been for a lap or 2 now, so maybe Haley can go and find out what happened, but it looks as though still troubles with that Lamborghini.
Yeah, they had troubles in qualifying, they had troubles in practice. Engine was down in power for some strange reason, and Saturday, Friday's practice, and they also had a gearbox problem which delayed them significantly. Only 4 laps in the second free practice on Friday afternoon, so it's really on the back foot for the second of these 2 returnee Lamborghinis.
So it's worth making a point, because these 2 Lamborghinis we saw battling earlier on, the 37 and 38 car, and their battling allowed the number 3 Aston Martin to get involved, and as a result, Stef Dusseldorf, when he took over, he is now in 5th position, some 5.5 seconds off the road, and I would venture if they'd have, you know, played the team game a little bit, Dusseldorf wouldn't be there.
Well, I think that's one of the issues when you got the boss is also the driver of one of the 2 cars. So it's a slightly unusual scenario where you have the boss of a team is actually, whether he's the lead or however they determine the drivers within each of the 2 cars. But certainly he did hold up the Dominic Schweiger car, and that allowed the other Aston to come into play. And maybe the pit lane should have played a bigger part in the judgment as to who should gain the advantage between those 2 Lamborghinis.
Absolutely. So there is the 21 car, Jamie Campbell-Walter, still running in 3rd position. He's 4 seconds ahead of Nicky Katzberg behind him, and quite a way behind Richard Westbrook behind, and you can see that he has been pulling away from Nicky Katzberg in recent laps. We saw the 2 of them battling as soon as they came out the pits, but Campbell-Walter's got into the rhythm, he's got into the flow, and he's pulling away.
Yeah, I mean, the out lap for any car is always going to be its most vulnerable, but once you get through that first lap, you get the tyre, and also because there's a driver change, the driver also gets accustomed to the feel of the car, having sat out the first 25 or so minutes in the garage waiting for the driver changes. You just can't turn it on like a light bulb. Some think they can, but they're very rare.
Well, and the track conditions are probably quite different now, because it's really changes. Sunny.
Yeah, I mean, the track temperature clearly will have risen. The ambient temperature, certainly where we're sitting in the commentary booth, feels much warmer as well. And all these things are what you have to factor in, especially the driver who is taking over. He hasn't had the benefit of a nice, gentle out lap from the pits to go to the grid to get some sense of what the differences may be. So it's a tougher role for the driver who takes over after the mandatory pit stop. So
we're watching our 5th place man there, the number 3 Hexis Aston Martin of Stef Dusseldorf. He's really got the easy stint in this one, because the man who was in it before, Clivio Piccioni, he did all the battling to make up positions and such. Oh, that's a shame. Thomas Enger in the pits, yeah. Muller was saying, well, we were saying, weren't we, that it didn't look quite right.
The car didn't look like it was. I mean, Thomas Enger wrings the neck of a racing car. He's a great race driver, and Thomas wasn't doing that. He knew he had some issues, and therefore when Lucas Luhr came up behind him, he didn't make a fight of it. He gave the room for the Nissan to go through, although he matched the times of the Nissan, but there was something clearly not working for Thomas Enger and that car, and they've taken it into the pits. So this is a concertinaing effect for 10th position. We've got Sergio Jimenez at the front of it in his Corvette, then the 2 Ford GTs. The first is the Belgian racing car of Christopher Nygaard, and then behind is Mark Henerici in the number 40 Mark VDS Racing Ford GT. Watch down the inside. You could see that Henerici was thinking about it, and he's going to have a look as well. I suspect not close enough to do it into turn 16, but we might see Christopher Nygaard having a look at it, sniffing the back of the Corvette, not liking the fumes, wanting fresh air. Absolutely, it was a very wide line taken in by Henerici. Is that going to give him a better run over the start-finish straight? There we can see Bas Linders. I'd love to speak to Baz and say, well, what happened when you came out of turn 2 into turn 3? You found a bit of the racetrack that isn't officially racetrack. I got away with it as well. He got away with it. I'm amazed. Into turn 2 they come. And Sergio Jimenez, who took over that car from Michael Rossi, who we saw having some great scraps as well, is trying to hold off Nygaard and Henerici. Of course, Henerici probably a little bit disappointed at the moment, him and Bas Linders, because their teammate is leading the race very, very comfortably. They'd hoped to be a little bit further up the field. Well, there wasn't a great qualifying for Mark Henerici. In fact, at one point he went off track on the exit of turn 10 and drove through the gravel, did a bit of almost haymaking and the car did a further 3 laps with straw, grass, blocking the radiators. I dread to think how the water temperatures were.
So on board we go with Sergio Jimenez through the jump. You'll see him keep glancing down to his mirrors and to his bottom right, because there will be a rear view screen in the car with which he can check how close Christopher Nygaard is. But if anything, it's Nygaard who's going to be looking in the mirrors more. He had a little semi-look up the inside in there. That could compromise him.
I think he made a mistake, because it's given Mark Henrici another opportunity to have a look down the inside as they come down the hill into turn 15, and he might look down the inside, might try and get up alongside, has to get out of it and has to almost drive off the racetrack. But there's a potential pass coming up into turn 17.
Yeah, I think that could force Nygaard out of position at one point, which would allow him up the inside. It hasn't worked that time. Sergio Jimenez will be watching this.
And he's actually pulled away as a consequence of the defence from Christopher Nygaard from the attack of Mark Henrici.
He'll be very happy looking in his rear view mirror to see these two continuing to battle over what is 11th position. The two of them almost identical lap times, only 0.04 of a second difference between them last time around, whereas Jimenez managed to pull out 0.2 of a second on the pair of them. Very, very close. They dive across the inside, the Baslinders line almost, as they head down into turns 4 and 5. And he's just lost a little bit of momentum now before the car of Henrici. And as Sergio Jimenez, he hasn't got the pace to hold off these two for very long. I think only if these two keep battling will Jimenez hold on to 10.
I think you're right, but that's an issue about motor racing. If you've got two guys battling behind a car that actually they should be ahead of, then they're never going to get ahead of it. And all Jimenez has got to do is maintain his line, not make any errors, not be seduced into driving quicker than he needs to do. The Corvette helps, skips and jumps forward slightly better through that 9-10 sequence, pulling gears. Sergio Jimenez did a great job on one of these cars in Brazil at Interlagos, but look at Nygaard looking to dive down the inside. He gets the job done, gets up the inside. Can Henrici follow through, make it a Ford 1-2? Yes, he does.
Brilliant work there. So Mark Henrici making up a position. He moves up into 11th place, so it's Nygaard from Henrici, and Sergio Jimenez drops down the field just a little bit, but this battle still isn't over. Henrici, is he going to be close enough for the look into the final corner? He thought about it, didn't he? A little twitch to the inside, but decided better of it. Out onto the start-finish straight they come, as this battle just calms down a little bit. Mark Henrici,
he was going to be a little bit too greedy if he thought he could make that move stick. He was not far enough up, and the track position was covered by Christopher Nygaard. He didn't let Mark Henrici get an opportunity.
Absolutely. So that's Mark Henrici up into 11th place. Let's hear from his teammate Baz Linders. He's down with Haley.
Will Mark be able to take Christopher? The last thing he wants to do is take his teammate out.
Yeah, of course, but we really would like this 10th position, because before the pit stop I was in front of the two Astons of Turner and Hoyenadel. We were 8 and 9, so at least the 10th position would be good, because the qualifying was a real disaster, so I hope to get a good result tomorrow.
You seem to take an interesting line at the start of the race, but it looks like you got away with it.
Well, it's very difficult at the start of the race, first of all because the green light comes on before we are around the bend, so we can't actually see it. There's not a lot of incidents at the start, which was good, but then it was a bit looking left and right where to go, and there was not a lot of space. This track is very narrow, and some people touched a little bit, but it's really good that nobody really crashed.
Thank you.
Well, he's got his excuses covered.
I mean, that's a version of an event that I watched, and you at home watched it as well, and I can't quite see the two overlapping.
Absolutely. So we've only got 5 minutes to go in this race. Baz Linders' colleague in the car is Mark Henrici. He's there in 11th place, but our race leader is their teammate Maxime Martin, and Henrici hasn't been able to keep the pace of Christopher Nygaard as they head across the start-finish straight now. This is the battle for 10th place, as I say. Nygaard now holding it. Hohenadel and Darren Turner just up in front. The gap is now up to 2.1 seconds between them, so that battle has calmed down a little bit. Turner in 8th, Hohenadel in 9th position. If anything, it's Steph Dusseldorp and Nicky Kapsberg that may well be closing up in the final few stages of the race, up in the battle for 4th position. But here is our race leader, the 41 car of Maxime Martin. It was an impressive early stint from Fred Makovicky, and Martin really has just taken it from strength to strength.